Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I have a question for you. How much influence do you have?
Not enough.
Not
Wish I had
enough.
more daughters.
Good answer. Not enough. How much influence do you have? One of my answers is more than you know. More than you know. How much do you think you have? How much do you need to have? How much influence do you need to change the world? How much influence do you need to change one person? Let me paint a picture for you. Of course, I'll paint your picture for you in your neighborhood. I want you to think about the front door of your house or apartment. Look out that front door. If it's an apartment, look at the doors on the other side of the hall, or look at the houses on the other side of the street. You probably know some of those people. You might not know those people. But take a look at them. Now go out to the sidewalk and take a walk down the street and look at those houses, on the left and on the right. There might be somebody outside, there might not be. There might be toys in the yard. Somebody might be cutting their grass. Or the doors just might be closed. And what's going on behind those closed doors? Odds are we don't know. Let me paint you a picture of my neighborhood. So I stand on my front porch. I see a house right over there, right across the street. I live in a middle-class neighborhood, standard, basic, split-level type house. I look across the street. There's a house where a classmate of mine used to live, John. Well, he moved out some years ago. And a couple moved in, a guy and a lady. They didn't get to know anybody in the neighborhood, and I didn't get to know them, and nobody got to know them either. But I come later to find out after this guy had moved, his wife had died. And no one knew. How could that be? Now you look, you got his house there, and the next house there sits on about 2 acres of ground. A lot of willow trees in front of it. That man's name is Barry, and his wife lives there with him. Their son, who lives in a house right behind his, they built that house, his son did, and his wife and kids. 500-foot driveway. Of course, you can't see the front doors, so he can't see them, let alone know what's behind them. Well, his son committed suicide in the basement. I'm not finished. Let's go a couple of houses more down the street. There's a couple with 2 kids at the time. The couple still lives there. The one daughter's grown up. The son died of an overdose of drugs. What's going on behind closed doors? We don't know. Let's go back to the house across the street where the guy's wife died, nobody knew. After he moved out, a couple moved in. They've got kids now. They didn't have their kids then. And the husband's sister was killed on I-81. Nobody knows why she was out there in the dark in the middle of the night, and she was just taken away in an instant. What goes on behind closed doors? Now that's my street. That's one street in about 2 blocks. How can that be? Of course, it's a very timely discussion in today's world with, you know what I would say, Robin Williams. What was going on behind his closed doors? We don't know. He went apparently went up to a bedroom and he committed suicide. The guy that was always laughing, making us laugh. What was going on, not just behind his doors, but behind his eyes. Some people knew about his depression, many of us didn't. And today I had a plumber over at my house. I've had this guy over a couple of times. He's good. If you ever need a plumber, let me know. He's a good man for you. But about 5 years ago, his son committed suicide. And he has a golf tournament annually for his son, which occurs September 12th, if you want the information on that. It's a memorial. It benefits the National Foundation Against Suicide, to prevent suicide. My street. This is just my street. Do you know someone on your street that might be having problems? Or maybe you have problems, whatever the issue is. Or maybe you don't know your neighbors at all. Let me ask you again what I asked in the beginning. How much influence do you have? How much do you need? How much do you need to have? Can you change the world? Can you change one person's life? My job tonight is not to depress you. But this is motivational, so I want to motivate you. Not motivate you, because I don't believe motivation isn't the right word. The word is inspiration. Inspiration means to breathe life into. So people breathe life into you, or you hear some music, or you read something that breathes life into you so that you then can become motivated to do what you need to do. So motivation. John Maxwell says, I don't want to pick people. I don't tap this guy on the back and tell him to get up and go to work. He says, I inspire people. So what's your part in this? Whether it's the things we talked about that relate to people passing away, or it could be something else. What is your part? Did you ever think about that? I look around my world, my circle, what I see locally, nationally, and it's crazy. And I'm like, what am I going to do? How can I affect my neighbors? There's a lot of closed doors around there. How can I affect my neighbors such that it's going to help them and lift them, and they will not do what they have been considering? Maybe it's not suicide. Maybe it's some other action they were going to take that they shouldn't be doing. What can I do? How can I influence? Of course, as John Maxwell says, that's what leadership is about. It's about influence. So what's our part? What's my part? What's your part? And I'll pause. I like, in the Old Testament, in the Psalms, there's a word that the psalmist uses at the end of the psalm that says, Selah. S-E-L-A-H. I love that word. Which means to consider what has just been said. And I like the double it or triple it. Selah, Selah, Selah. Consider what has just been said. Now with that as a backdrop, what are we going to do? How can we get behind closed doors, whether it's actually going into a house or getting into somebody's head, getting behind their eyes, getting into their thinking? Now, I don't have specifics for you on that, but I've got some generalities which are important. Number one is know who you are and what you're about. I speak about that a lot. In that context, your identity, what's your name? What does your name mean? Your name is who you are and what you are about. We don't name our kids stupid, do we?
We just call them that.
Well, yeah, we might call them that. Well, in a sense, we've named them, and therefore they could become, in a certain situation, stupid. So we don't want to name things wrongly. We want to name them rightly. So if you haven't, look up your first name and your middle name and see what they mean, because that's who you are. I'll give you a perfect example of that. My middle name is Eugene. I did not like Eugene as a kid. Until about 5 years ago, I looked it up. It says it means of the EU, of, G-E-N, generations, genetics, of the generations. I said, whoa, I am of the generations. I am about the generations. I now have 10 grandkids. 10. I'm looking for 12. Number of 12 is the number of government. I believe these kids are going to do something. They have great names. Landon means to the hill. Hayden means field of wheat. It talks about harvest. So your name's important. And there's a whole lot more about identity I can talk about. Your identity relates to who are you? Where have you come from? Why are you here? Where are you going? Where have you come from? Your heritage. Why are you here is your purpose. And where you're going is your destiny, your future. So what is your purpose? And your purpose is related to your passion. What are you passionate about? If you're not doing what you are passionate about, then you need to check up and figure it out, and figure out how you're going to do what you're passionate about. That's a short discussion of that, but I did it over a period of time and it changed my life. It got me into speaking in Toastmasters and on and on. Be a lifelong learner. Why are you here? You're certainly here because you want to be a learner. You are a learner. You want to be a learner. You want to affect people. You want to change the world, just like Tim Sanders says. The only reason to give a speech is to change the world and change people. And I'm believing you guys are going to walk out here changed because of this speech and because of John's speech. The last one, believe it. I heard a guy once say, believe that you are a history maker. Don't say, I'm just Jim Barbush. What can I do? What am I? I believe I can change the world in groups or one person at a time. And you need to believe it. We all need to believe it. That's what Barbush Enterprises is about. Building people up so that they understand who they are and what they are about. That's what Harrisburg Biz Leaders is about. We need to learn who we are. Because you know what? We got to get behind closed doors and help people. Whether it's into their house, into their apartment, or into their head, somehow, some way. And I'm not going to give you an answer how to do that tonight. Other than say, focus on being a lifelong learner, learning things about this. I handed out a bulletin of all the, there's a list of topics I have in there. I've done presentations on all those topics about identity, about how to be an influence, and many other things. Take a look at those, see what you think of. And I can send you presentations on that you can look at. And I have one CD that talks about the profile, 7 profile points of a dynamic leader. If you want that CD, I'll give it to you for free. It's probably 3 hours long. It's a seminar I did. So can you influence people? Can you influence someone? Can you prevent someone from possibly committing suicide or whatever else? You betcha. Of course, there's psychology and everything involved, which you might not be able to help some people, but you are a history changer. Right? You're a world changer?
Yes.
And you can change people, right? Help them to change.
Encourage them to do so.
Encourage them to do so, and I'll leave you with inspire them to be changed. Give them some inspiration so they become motivated to do what they need to do.